Could I ask you why you decided to make that documentary to begin with? I'm curious what took you down that road.
Yeah, well, believe it or not, it just came together very organically through different coincidences, synchronicities, whatever you want to call it. So we really didn't plan much. It's the first documentary I made, and we just had an opportunity. I had an opportunity to go with my bilingual Colombian friend down into Putumayo, the southern part of Colombia, which is between the Andes and the Amazon. So you get these really beautiful rolling hills from the Andes coming in, connecting into the Amazon. And for me, I have a very active mind. I like creativity. I'm a very curious person. So for me, just going into the jungle, I know all the yogis might disagree, but hear me out. I've been practicing yoga also since 2008, but honestly, I get a little bored. And so, yes, I
Hmm.
can go into my meditative practice more, but now at this stage of my life, I also love the ability to be creative and be active and to do something. So I thought, while we're there for almost a week, why don't I pull together a film and see how I like
Yeah,
making
why not?
documentaries? Why not, right?
Wow.
Like we're there
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Right.
It's a much slower pace of life, so it can be really fun. And the Taita that we filmed with, he's a third generation Taita. So they call them Taitas and not shamans in Colombia. And even the word shaman, the ayahuasqueros don't always love using that word either
Mm.
because there's a lot of, just like in the holistic community, in the West, there's now a lot of kind of fake shamans and gurus also
Oh yeah.
down near the Amazon in Colombia, Peru. So anyway, this is the third generation Taita that we got the opportunity to film with, and it's just, you saw the film. It's just really awesome. The information that he shared to kind of help bridge these two worlds is the whole goal. Because the last thing I'll say on it is, in the West, I've been going to the psychedelic conferences and meeting people, and I've worked in the medical field since 2008, dietitian since 2012. And, we don't know what we don't know. And it's a completely different way of thinking, how they do and think about research and what's effective for healing down near the Amazon. And I think it's really going to be beneficial for the West to understand that way of thinking. And then they, of course, are open to understanding the scientific method as well. And this emergence and convergence and understanding of both worlds can just really help to improve healthcare for both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. There's definitely a problem in Western medicine with not really caring or thinking about the the soul. The spiritual side of things. We look at it from a biochemical standpoint and just kind of approach it head on. But there's so much we don't know about the brain or the mind or trauma or these other things that might be going on that I mean, science has definitely shown that if the mind isn't in a good place, the body is going to be suffering in all sorts of terrible ways. And sometimes you just have to get in there and rewire the brain a little bit so that the body can kind of heal itself and it's not in this fight or flight mode all the time with cortisol levels going through the roof, and maybe they've even got like adrenaline going and frying their body um, when they
Yeah,
when they could just fix the mind, right?
right, right. How much the emotions do impact this, and other modalities of medicine like Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic. They've known this, right, for centuries, and we know it too. In the West, it's just the tools and the methodology of going about it. And so you're an expert in research, and I like to think of it as intellect versus intelligence.
Mm.
And I'm really curious to hear from you, because once you know more about research, I think that we then can see the limitations of research as
Oh,
well
for
in
sure.
some of these ways, right? Because sometimes to research something, it's almost impossible because you have too many variables to even properly understand. And that's what I really have seen ayahuasca fit into, because the same people can go to the same ceremony for ayahuasca and have such different outcomes despite drinking the same exact medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, you see that in the supplement space as well, right? Where
Yeah,
somebody's drinking durian or L-theanine or just whatever, and they're like, "Oh, it's changed my life," and then another person takes it and no effect. And it's
right.
interesting how that happens with breath work or DMT or something like that. I'm I wouldn't call myself a nihilist, but I do think a lot of things can be explained biochemically speaking, and so it could be genetics, it could be a number of things, past experiences, why these people um, have vastly different effects when they take the same drug, their state of mind. I think it can be explained, but it's going to take a while. And a lot of pharmaceuticals, they don't know how they work, like modafinil and that kind of stuff. It's all black box, right? They know something happens, like the drug goes in, a bunch of stuff happens, and then there's an end result, and so but that's good enough, right? So with clinical trials, they'll do like a safety test first, and then just to make sure that it's not hurting anyone. And once they've done that, they don't really need to prove exactly how it works, just that it does work. And there's so many drugs like that where, okay, we know it's safe and we know that it works, and that's about it. And so I think that's how DMT and that kind of stuff works, because the brain, you can't, you can't open up a person's mind while you're giving them DMT. You just can't. I know the only time we really started understanding how the brain works in different parts of the brain was after World War II, because people were coming back with shrapnel in different parts of their brain. And they're like, oh, well, now that person can't talk anymore because he's got a piece of metal stuck in his prefrontal cortex. Or that person can't move his legs because he's got, a shard stuck in his brainstem, stuff like that. And so, um, you can't really experiment on people necessarily, and get good results. And so, yeah, it turns into this black box thing where you give the person the drug and then something happens, and the end result. And I definitely think DMT is that way. There's,
Right.
there's
And I even think
yeah,
it's like it's that and even a layer on top of it where we change week to week, day to day as well. So then we could even have a different experience ourselves with our own same biology, right?
yeah,
Different days with sitting with ayahuasca.
yeah. Life is just, as a biologist, it's so frustrating to work with. Like, even cells in a dish. So a lot of my PhD work was on just cells, and depending on the time of day, um, what passage, so how many times you've used the same cells, they'll change, right? And you amplify that exponentially with a full person, and who knows, there's just this, it's this beautiful mess that we've evolved into, with all these different biochemical reactions firing everywhere. And i think I think that's really the soul to me, is this biochemical mess, just everything firing all at once. And it produces this consciousness, this creature that can't really be explained, because there's just, billions, trillions of variables going just constantly, and that's what creates you. And so trying to understand it fully is just so hard. Like I said, I love biology, but man, is it a mess. It's not like physics or chemistry, where you do an experiment once and the same thing will happen, um, except for like quantum physics or something. But with biology, it's just constantly changing. So
And it's this layer of mystery to everything, right? And it
yeah,
makes life a little bit fun. It'll keep
makes
me
it
very
interesting.
entertained as a documentary
Yeah,
creator.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, the woo woo stuff, it's definitely real, and it really depends on the person, how they're experiencing it and how they feel it. And
Right,
mm,
and I think it's really important in this world too to not get lost by it because it can be there can be an extreme where people go and sit with ayahuasca over and over and they kind of lose themselves in this, I guess, shared reality or whatever you want to call it. And I feel people who are resistant, hesitant, not supportive of it, they might have seen that side of it, or somebody who has had that experience where they didn't have a great outcome. And that's very fair, but we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Because a
Right.
lot of things in medicine are like that. So we just have to take each individual person and consider the potential benefits to the potential risks. And then go from there. But that's medicine. And I
Yeah.
think it's difficult, especially if people aren't clinicians, to really understand that medicine really is not black and white. Even conventional medicine, we're always, doing this weighing and navigating the gray area. And that's where really great clinicians come from, actually, the ones that can navigate that gray well. And it's also, I feel, why there's more discussion now too about intuition in medical practice and developing intuition as medical providers to go alongside the logical mind. So it's
Definitely.
like that intellect and intelligence combination again.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of have to trust your gut sometimes and rely on wisdom. Yeah, I mean, I've known people who have had terrible experiences on DMT and people who it changed their whole life,
Yeah.
and just like metformin or any of these other mainstream drugs, that some people, their bodies just aren't going to accept it very well. And I noticed even in the documentary that some of the people, like if they're kids or their grandma or something, they're like, yeah, it's not for them. Like, they
Right.
couldn't
His wife,
take it. Yeah, even
the
the wife.
shaman's wife, does
Yeah,
not drink
not for
ayahuasca,
me.
everybody.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you think you're going to watch the film and think it's going to be just a big promotion of ayahuasca, it for sure isn't. It shows both sides.
right, right. And some people, it's just whatever. Maybe their brain isn't wired that way. Maybe they don't want. Maybe that opening up of the vasculature causes pain and problems and things like that. And so, I like that a lot. I think it's wisdom to show that not everything is for everyone, but for some people or most people, I don't know, it can be transformative. You can kind of
Right.
help. It's a hack to the third eye, the spiritual side of the world.
Right. And so often it's timing. And they talked about this, the community, the nephew talked about this in the film too. When we asked why do people have this fear, and they're in this community where it's a core part of the community for generations. And he mentioned he feels a component of it too is knowing that it's going to create change. And sometimes people don't want change in their life. They're not ready for it. Maybe they have a little inkling of like, people from the West, maybe a little inkling like, oh, this job isn't right for me, this path isn't right for me, my relationship isn't working. But if you're not ready to see it, not ready, not wanting to change it, then maybe that's what's holding you back from actually going and sitting for ayahuasca. Because what I have noticed from being in this culture for it's been since I think 2021. It'll push people, and people do want to change afterwards, which is a great thing because it's usually in alignment with what they already knew on like a certain little level. But this is also why there's a very common saying of don't go searching for it. If you're feeling called, trust that calling. It's the intuition again. But
Mm.
don't think that you should just go sit for ayahuasca because it's trendy, because you're just curious, because like have that genuine. And usually they have to refer to her as a grandmother, the spirit energy of the medicine, and they'll say she finds you if you're ready for it. And that was my experience actually. Every single ayahuasca sitting I've sat with has come to me. I've been invited. It randomly shows up like in my experience wherever I am. So I've never actually gone on Google and searched like, oh, ayahuasca center near me.
It's just happened. It just happens naturally when the time is right.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be working and creating a film or doing anything related to this, but in 2021, I came down to Costa Rica for a month. I was going to just work remote and then go back to Minneapolis. And that's mostly what I did. But the day I arrived, the yoga teacher staying at the same kind of facility I was in, she mentioned there's an herbal center down the mountain. So I was thinking, oh, interesting. Maybe they like make tinctures and soaps and stuff like that, right? So I start walking down the mountain and I start hearing this chanting. It's like, huh, interesting. I asked some bikers as they came by if they knew where this, herbal place was. They didn't, but I thought, okay, well, maybe it's the chanting. If they're into like holistic stuff, maybe they have something going on. So I followed the chanting, step by step, thinking, oh my gosh, that's going to be like so hard walking back up. But
Right.
I kept going. And I walked into their facility and I ran into the owner. And the owner said, oh, we like serve medicines here. And one of the best shamans from Peru is going to be up this weekend if you're interested in joining us. And I had some fear. I was nervous, but I was always very curious about it. For about 8 years prior to that, I was curious about it. And so they had some great one integration facilitator who hopped on a call with me for about 45 minutes the next day and just kind of talked through everything. And I just had this really strong feeling that I wanted to join, and for whatever reason. So that kind of started this whole journey of, working with ayahuasca in this way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you had a really good experience with this was in Costa Rica.
Yeah, well, it was it was wild. The word good can be debatable, right?
Yeah, it's a
But
journey, right?
yes, and the biggest thing was that it 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 showed me everything. Like I was looking at real life and it was in zeros and ones. Everything was in binary code, even with my eyes open. And
Wow.
that in itself wasn't the crazy part, because people say, well, of course, you're like tripping. It's like if you're on like marijuana or like mushrooms or whatever. So, yes. But then also, the wild thing about this was that it felt so real. Like it felt more real than this reality. And you'll hear
Wow.
people say that over and over. And we have to be careful not to, make ourselves lost at the same time, right? But just seeing that and feeling that and having that experience really opened my eyes more to what we're now hearing and learning from quantum physics about how much we, like, how deep our reality can be, which I feel is really empowering for me to have experience, because it made me also realize, wow, like there's a lot that we can do in this reality and create and experience, and that's also, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but also the what's been playing out in quantum physics.
Y-
From my
Yeah,
understanding, which is not, very deep, because I say if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Quantum physics gets a little bit too deep for me, but actually, hold on, my camera just shut off.
Yeah.
Let me fix that real fast.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. I get all this expensive stuff, and it's just more problems than. It's so
Well,
random that. Oh man, I'm gonna
let's
have
see
to.
some.
I'm probably gonna have to. Because it's not even. It like switched to some random other camera that I have. Mevo wireless. Um, let me. Can we hop back out and hop back in? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I understand these programs are glitchy. That's the thing. I'm
Yeah,
waiting for better programs.
yeah.
So
Here,
both of us.
let's switched where the switch sides we're on. Let me fix that. There we go. Yeah, yeah. Quantum mechanics and quantum physics. There's definitely stuff that we don't understand, and so um, yeah. I've just done the vape. I haven't done the tea yet, but yeah, you definitely start seeing things that you can't explain. And yes, it's hallucinatory, but like you said, it's not that things um, are just a little different. Like everything's very different. Like I saw the mountains breathing, you know, and literally just like they were taking a deep breath and moving in and out. Um, and you know the clouds looked like people and things like that. So um, it's not that things just change a little bit. It's like an entirely different world, you know. And
Yeah, it's
one time when I was doing LSD, so I do a lot of microscopy where you kind of look really deep into cells and things like that. And I wanted to look at it while I was on while I was on LSD, just to see if I could see something that I otherwise wouldn't, you know, because I use a lot of fluorescent tags and different things light up inside the cells. And but the problem is you're kind of on a different plane of reality, and so there's too much fuzz, there's too much feedback, and I think our senses aren't really attuned to interpret and receive information from that world beyond kind of an emotional or mental state. And so, um, as far as like interpreting base reality while you're there, I feel it's really hard. But as far as, you know, coming to different conclusions about your, you know, your emotional state or your or your mental state, I think it's very useful. But unfortunately, the world gets too fuzzy when you're when you're trying to use it as a tool, as a because I wanted to use it as a scientific tool. I was like, wow, maybe I can come to some, you know, conclusion that I otherwise wouldn't, a eureka moment. But no, that everything gets a little bit too fuzzy, and maybe I'll try it again sometimes and get like a pen and paper and figure out my conclusions while I'm in that state of mind. But as far as like mental blocks and things like that, I feel it's very useful. But
Yeah, I think so. And that's the biggest theme of all of these, right? It helps us with neuroplasticity. And that's very brilliant that you had the little experiment, the N of one, right? The
yeah,
case study of can I
yeah,
see more? And it even makes me think, also we have this shared experience. So if our mind is able to see too far beyond what our shared experience is right now as humans, that's where like brilliant scientists in the past were called crazy, right?
yeah,
It's not that it wasn't something that's going to be very valuable. It's just the timing again. And I even felt that with our work in functional medicine with the clinic because I started studying functional medicine in 2014. The clinic started 2016, and I still feel we're kind of ahead of the time with this, where to me it's so obvious this would be the way that we do root cause medicine. It's really effective to help people reverse chronic disease. But it takes time, like change takes time. And right, even research, it takes what, average 17 years from research to clinical practice, which
yeah.
is crazy.
Insane amount of time. Yeah, it's a long road to make any kind of drug or things like that. That's why people, oh, these pharmaceutical companies, they're just trying to make money off people. It's like, yeah, I mean that's at the core, that's true, but all the safety tests, the research, all that stuff, it takes a very very long time, and a lot of them don't work, you know. And I worked on mice, and I think it was upwards 70% of things that work on mice don't work in people. So
Oh, wow.
you can, and a mouse experiment can take years, you know. And so you're like, aha, I finally figured it out, and then you do a test run on either primates or humans, and nothing. You're like, ah, because their physiology is obviously different. And so
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah, and
stuff.
it like brings up the question then with ayahuasca and this research. Of course, we want more research to kind of decriminalize it more in the country and take it off Schedule One and all this. But at the same time, how much research do we need really, and how much is actually possible when
Yeah,
we like?
that's a
Is it
tough one.
enough to realize that traditionally how they used it, there is very minimal side effects. People weren't dying, and it seems like we kind of understand why people are getting injured from it because it can be medication interactions. And we know that people should need to taper off SSRIs so they don't get serotonin syndrome when they drink it. And if they don't take that seriously, then they're at risk. But yeah, how much is it to say, hey, this has been used for thousands of years really effectively? We have all these case reports of people getting healed really in big ways. I mean, case reports of heroin addiction being cured. I
Wow.
mean, if I were addicted to heroin, would I want to try ayahuasca one sitting and get
Yeah.
over it? Like, yeah,
Worth a
right?
shot,
If
right?
I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that leads me to my next question. So you do digestive health, and I know the only other part of the body that has any kind of neurons is the gut, right? Because the process of moving food from your esophagus through your stomach to the duodenum,
Oh, your audio is. I'm not hearing you.
can you still hear me?
Okay, now I can.
Okay, man, this thing. Okay, is it still? Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use this program ever again. So anyway, yeah, so there's neurons that are basically working in rhythm, pushing food through your body, and so I'm wondering if it's a lot of digestive problems are linked to the brain because it's all kind of one connected thing. The mind, the stomach, the intestines. It's all kind of like a rhythmic um,
Yeah. And
process. Have you applied any of that stuff to digestive health itself?
well, exactly, and vice versa. The gut affecting the brain affecting the gut, this vagus nerve that's connecting the two. And it's so huge and important that we consider that because I guess tying it back to the ayahuasca and psychedelics, it's often being talked about for mental health, right? But there are, I really feel, low hanging fruits that we should address first before recommending somebody go and sit with psychedelics, but also psychedelics could help them improve the food and nutrition in their gut at the same time. So it's not so black and white. But yeah, definitely, with if the gut is not healthy and working well, that we know there's research showing these connections, correlations between things like depression and anxiety. And we've had many clients at our clinic significantly improve those symptoms when we improve the gut and nutrition. And it's, once the gut starts to be improved, so many processes in the body improve from there because most of the immune system is in the gut. We talked about the brain connection. The skin is a huge organ, the biggest organ on the body, I believe.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
mean, even take my story when I was 11, 12 years old, I had the worst case of acne my dermatologist had ever seen. It was horrible. My whole face was just like acne.
No, no.
Yeah, and for 10 years I was cycled on and off of all the medications. But it ended up being the thing that actually worked was functional medicine, was food changes, was cutting out dairy, was healing my gut from all those medicines. And wow, had I known that, when I was 12, I mean, how much like could have been saved by just knowing this simple thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's a two-way street, right? Like, I was a missionary in Japan for a couple years, and I was worried about like guilt and my past, and it was all minor, stupid stuff. But anyway, um, and yeah, it was amazing. All the pain was in my stomach. Like my mental state was just like damaging my stomach, and they stuck a endoscope, or is that what it's called? They in Japanese it's called the ino camera, stomach camera, but yeah,
Like
they
up
stuck
your
it down there and they
nose
looked around.
endoscopy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, everything looked okay, but no, it was the mental anguish, and it had transported
Yes.
down through my body into my stomach. But
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
the inverse of that is, yeah, if your diet's bad or your natural flora, your bacteria in your stomach is off, then the inverse is true, where it's going the other way and messing up your
Yes.
brain and causing depression. And yeah, I know they've shown a lot of studies where if you've got a lot of inflammation in the gut, that's like a one-to-one correlation with depression or something. Like it's like exactly pretty much if there's inflammation down there, you're going to have mental problems, which is crazy, right? You just wouldn't think
Right.
that, but all those expressions, oh, I feel it in my gut, or gut wrenching problems. It's true, and
Right, right, right. And to me, it's so basic, obvious, but it's not talked about nearly enough. Not, if any clinicians are listening to this, please refer to our clinic if you have clients struggling. And we
yeah,
do take insurance. 70% of our clients get insurance coverage. And it's just, it could really make a difference, especially like therapists. Partnering with therapists are so huge. But what you said is exactly because the mind and the stress that we can create from that, from experience, from situations in life, can do many things in the gut. And one thing is it can decrease the stomach acid. So all of a
oh,
sudden, we're not breaking down food. The stomach's supposed to be very acidic to help break down food. And that acidity can actually keep the sphincter between our esophagus and stomach closed. So people think too much acid, oh, I'm going to get acid reflux. But actually, the stomach needs to be acidic. That's the whole point.
yeah,
So chewing food is number one, and the saliva and the amylase starts to break down the carbs, goes down the esophagus, has some peristalsis like the food chute, into the reservoir of the stomach where the acidity really starts to break it down and absorb some nutrients, which, speaking of depression, if people aren't absorbing B12 properly in the stomach, and it's breaking apart to be absorbed actually in the ileum, the third part of the small intestines, but the absorption of B12 starts, for simplistic terms, it starts in the stomach. So if that's not happening, that in itself could actually be causing depression, a B12 deficiency. So then we think about how many people are on stomach acid medications, decreasing stomach acid for a long term. Those aren't meant to be used long term, but people are being used long term because people aren't finding other solutions to the acid reflux problem because they're not, coming to a clinic like ours or whatnot. And that then can be causing the mental, so it can be this really terrible loop. And what we have to do then at our clinic, we help and we work with doctors to taper off like PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, because it has to be a very slow taper. You can't just stop it. You can get rebound acid reflux. So
oh
we
wow,
really need to look at food and lifestyle and all these factors, get that in place, and then we can start the work with the doctor. We just need their permission to start the tapering because we don't prescribe medications or do anything with that as dietitians. But then it's like a slow over maybe 2-3 months tapering, and people can get off of those. And it's so important because if you stay on those, you're going to have issues. You're likely going to have issues down the road because it just can affect everything downstream from the stomach and the intestines. It's really not good to stay on it for life.
yeah, no, for sure, yeah. B12, it has to pick up. Is it intrinsic factor in the stomach to activate it and then absorb it? And yeah, if your stomach
Bingo.
acid's messed up, it's not gonna absorb it properly. Yeah, no, that's true. If your stomach acid's messed up, it can't break down the food, and then when it hits the small intestine, it's got all those receptors lining it, right? And so if it's not broken down, it can't go into the body and into the brain and give you what you need, and then you're going to have all sorts of problems. And so I hadn't thought of it
Yeah.
that way, but no, that makes perfect sense. If stuff's not getting broken down properly, your body can't absorb it, and if you've got
Yeah.
deficiencies, those neurons firing aren't going to be firing properly. And so yeah,
Yeah. And
calcium
it
and
can,
magnesium and everything.
right. And it can be triggering to the immune system if you're not breaking down the proteins properly and they're getting down to the small intestine and can be causing a reaction if it's not being read properly by the immune system. But the great positive news of this is the body has an amazing ability to heal and regenerate itself. The small intestine lining, it has new cells every like 5 to 7 days. The whole intestines rejuvenates itself every about 2 to 3 weeks, like 21 days. So it's amazing. And we know that the microbiome, the bacteria and this combination, the microbiota of all these microorganisms in our gut, which is almost more than like human cells, that can shift just in 2 to 3 days of changing our food. So it really also brings up the question of how valuable is stool testing. It can give us some information, but I think people people think it's a fixed thing and it's not, but it's great that it's not. So it means that you changing and adjusting food and lifestyle can make a huge difference in even just a short amount of time.
Yeah, yeah, I know they do fecal transplants, right?
Oh yeah,
Where
that's
people who
interesting
have a messed up
too.
microbiome, or if they've taken way too many antibiotics and destroyed
Yeah,
their natural flora, they have to take a bunch of someone else's feces because once you've destroyed it can be hard to build it up and on your own. And
right.
Clostridium difficile, I think it's
C.
called,
diff.
can come in, right? And
Yep.
take over your stomach and be like, oh, I'll set up here. There's no one else here.
Yes.
I'll camp out, and that can kill you, right? So,
Yeah, and they're
uh,
making them into capsules now. So it used to be
is that
that
what
you
they're
had to
called?
get a, yeah, that's what they're calling them.
Capsules.
So you used to have to get a feeding tube, which I used to actually place feeding tubes when I used to work in the intensive care units. And sometimes I'd go to the operating room for burn patients, place these tubes, and that's how they would do the fecal transplant, FMT, fecal
Stick a tube down
microbial
there.
transplants. Is that? Yeah, you'd like trickle it through that, but now our tech is a
Scooping.
little bit better, where you can just swallow a
Yeah, I
capsule.
mean, there's good capsules out there that have pretty good linings and things, and so you're not gonna release it in the wrong place. And I think it's you drag it, or ethyl cellulose or something. Those capsules that are really thick, and they can break down in the right spot, and you're not gonna have it break open in the wrong area and cause all sorts of problems before they get there. Yeah, there's a
Totally.
not to get vulgar, but there's a South Park episode where they're all trying to get. I think it's Tom Brady's poo. They call it the spice melange, where they're all trying to get it because he's known to have the most healthy microbiome or something. They're like, this is going to solve all my problems. So I just
Oh
have
my
to get
gosh,
the
that's hilarious.
get the spice melange. It's
I
hilarious.
was just gonna say something about this though, solving all the problems, because on the flip side, it's we tend to, as a culture, want quick fixes. So I feel like I need to do my job and preface and say it, if you haven't tried like functional medicine and food adjustments and lifestyle, I would really, really do that first before you start thinking that, like, oh, this is the only solution to my problem of inflammatory bowel disease or IBS or whatnot, because there's often so much we can do. Like, for example, I had a client with Crohn's who was scheduled to have part of her intestines cut out and removed because
Oh
it was
gosh.
so inflamed. But we
Yeah.
started working together on these root cause methods, and they were able to cancel the surgery.
Wow. No, I
Right.
I believe it. No, I have a friend who had Crohn's, and this is no endorsement of marijuana, but he was just really stressed all the time, apparently. But yeah, he'd get all these ulcers and things, and he started doing marijuana regularly, and it went away. You know,
Wow.
you just never know what could fix it. And yeah, getting a colostomy bag, that's what it's called, right? Where you have to have that the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's just,
The
I'm sure,
cutout.
just really hard. And so if you can find any way to not get to that point, are those reversible, by the way? Once they get the clock, can they like put put the intestine back together where they don't have to have the colostomy bag anymore, or is that a lifelong thing?
It depends on the person.
Depends
Sometimes
on
they
the
can
person.
reconnect it where it ends up, but of course, cutting out the intestine, it's always going to affect something, like some nutrient absorption,
Yeah.
something, depending upon how much is cut out, where it's cut out. So yeah, 1,000% if we can just do everything we can to avoid that, because it's in the conventional system, because it's not so integrated with this functional system yet, it can be easy that people get funneled down that path. So people really need to advocate for themselves and start thinking outside the box too, so they don't all of a sudden end up, 20 years later, because no doctor told them to really take nutrition seriously,
Yeah.
with an ostomy. And I used to work with patients like that actually when I lived in California, because I specialized in vein feeding for a part of my career, which is parental nutrition. It's feeding through the veins, and it's often needed when people can't absorb enough nutrition through the gut. And
Mm.
this is usually the reason that people need it, because too much of the gut got cut out.
Oh my gosh. So it's like an IV type thing where they're
Yeah, so usually there's like a port, or if depending upon how long or short term the person needs it. So I would do all the calculations of the macronutrients,
oh
micronutrients.
wow.
Yep, and then I would work with the pharmacist who would compound it. So it's like one of the most dangerous medicines in the world because it's pretty
I was gonna
complicated,
say, yeah, don't
but
mess that up.
life-saving.
Too much
Nope.
potassium, someone's gonna die immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That's fascinating. Well, looping it all back, would you say have you tried? Oh, I guess you can't, huh? You can't give people DMT, not legally. Maybe you shouldn't say if you have or haven't.
no, no,
Um,
no. I'm not interested in that.
but
I'll just keep making films.
I'll just keep making, yeah, yeah.
You
Well,
leave it to the experts.
I just wonder if you know, if somebody is who's having digestive problems could go down and with a purpose and like I've got this mental block, it's damaging my mind and it's damaging my stomach and all these things, and I wonder if it could be a potential treatment. Yeah.
I think if people are really struggling with the mindset, with taking action properly to do what they need, feel like they need to do, what is that energetic block? What's the psychological block? And they've tried some other modalities and they're just not breaking through and they feel really called to this. I would trust that, like trust their intuition. And I feel, if it's meant to be, things will line up. And that's really, I know it sounds super woo woo, but you hear this over and over where it's like this medicine just finds people. Like they get invited. So I wouldn't put a ton of effort in because I think if it's meant to be, it will line up in your life if you have that intention and if it's something that, could really help. But yeah, if it's because the most amazing thing about psychedelics is it does help to open new neural pathways, new ways of seeing things, which is why
Yeah.
it got really popular in Silicon Valley with creativity and new ways of thinking about how can we change and create new technology to make our lives better as humans. So yeah, and actually, I would say first of all, little self promotion, but check out the film. We're gonna put it online December 9th. It's gonna have its YouTube premiere, and it's a simple film, but it really covers a lot of information to help you understand and decide. Is this for me? Is this a right fit, or should I try something else first?
Yeah. Yeah, and just do your research and figure out if it's something that you think would benefit you. And I I just had a thought, but stay with me. I just thought of it, so it may take me a second to put it into words. But I'm a big believer that spirituality and religion, they're linked with happiness and reproduction, and I feel like Mother Nature kind of rewards you if you're doing the right things. And one of those right things is spirituality and religion. Because if you're spiritual slash religious, you're going to be part of the group and your chance of survival and reproduction are higher, right? And so it rewards you with happiness. That's why religious people are generally happier. And I wonder if using DMT or LSD or whatever, those things definitely hack into the spiritual world. And I wonder if depression is where that spiritual side is either being neglected or it's haywire or something's going wrong. And if you're using DMT or going to church or just whatever it is, it can kind of open that up and free it. And yeah, fix that problem, and then Mother Nature rewards you, with happiness and that kind of stuff. Anyway, just just a thought I had. Maybe that's what's going on. It's Mother Nature coming back and saying, "Oh, you're being spiritual, you're being religious again. Here's happiness, and I'll fix that for you," and that
Yeah, I
kind of
think
stuff.
it's
But
connection. I think I agree. It's this connective feeling, whether it's the connection to what people call God or life or universe or however you see it. It's some connection to this bigger energy that I generally feel like everybody feels this we like to fight. Religions like to fight. Spirituality versus religion likes to fight. Atheist versus agnostic
The
versus,
big
you know,
war. Yeah.
but
Right.
at the end of the day, I feel like everybody feels there's something more to this life. There's like an energy beyond
Yeah.
everything, and however you want to make a framework around it, that I just hope that everybody realizes that, you know, the funny, kind of funny thing is like we fight, but at the end of the day, we're all kind of talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think we fight because we get really too black and white in
Oh,
in
for sure.
in some of that. But even the roots, I think, of some religions, you know, religion in some ways in some religions has become a big business, but it wasn't always like that. Like the roots can be a lot more pure. So if we look at the roots of all these things, even the spiritual community, there are some problems that happen in it that aren't so, you know, quote unquote spiritual for sure. But I think it all has a similar shared foundation. And if we can just connect on that level together, I do think that in itself can increase general happiness of like our world and our cultures together on this world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. Yeah. And I think I think you got it right. Where, unfortunately, a lot of religions and things they're very black and white, and just like how certain drugs don't work on some people, maybe certain religions they just don't get it, and or maybe they have their own version of that where it feels right to them rather than the the dogmatic system of the particular church that they're in. But well, thank you so much, Ashley. This has been very, very enlightening. Um, and I'll put a link down to your video. It's not coming out till December, though, right?
December
So
9th.
December 9th. Okay. Maybe I'll put a link to like a. Do you have like a
Maybe the YouTube
landing
channel that
page or a
I'll share the
YouTube channel?
YouTube channel that I'll be posting it to. So
Okay.
that would be great.
Okay, that sounds good. And yeah, I got a sneak peek, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in this stuff. This is one of the better ones that you can kind of dive into and experience firsthand what it's all about and if it's right for you. And but yeah, it's not right for everybody. I know. I had a kind of a friend of a friend. He was a schizophrenic, and it kind of went the opposite way. He's okay now, but
Okay.
yeah, don't force it. And I know if you've got like real severe mental illness, you probably be careful um, jiggling reality wires with that stuff. But
Yeah, let's do a little disclaimer too and say, you know, it's very illegal in the United States, so nothing in this
yeah,
podcast is a recommendation.
nothing. Right,
Just
right.
information.
Just for informational purposes only. Right. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Definitely not in the U.S., but yeah. Other countries. But well, thank you again, and
Oh, thank you, John
I
Paul.
highly recommend your movie. And if anybody has any other questions or anything, you can reach out to me or Ashley.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
All right, thanks everybody. Bye.
Ciao.